Hey everybody, welcome to Indie Games Level Up. I'm your host, Phil Lubensky. This week we'll be doing something a little different. I'll be talking with 3 indie publishers about how you can attract their attention and how to effectively market your game. As a publisher, what do you think you bring to the table for an indie?
We want you to focus on creation and making your project and leaving everything on the business side to your partner who specializes in PR, marketing, distribution, localization, understanding where your markets are globally. These are things you shouldn't be killing yourselves thinking about. Leave that to a partner.
If I see a unique game that's out there that'll be great for the market, it's always nice to get myself involved in there, create a partnership. If they need funds, I fund the development the rest of the way. If they need distribution, marketing, whatever case, I can provide for them and we can create a better game, a better market for that game.
The problem is that there's tens of thousands of games launched every single week. It's more than just making a well-designed game. This is something that independent developers shouldn't have to do internally, not because they can't do it, it's just because the resources needed to actually compete in the marketplace, the barriers of entry are so high right now that you can't do it alone.
Think of game development as having specific parts that have to work in unison. The development aspect of it is very important. Without proper marketing and distribution, it means nothing. And so we see many projects where a developer will put the game into, for example, early access on Steam.
The reality is that's your launch. You don't have an early access launch and then a full Steam launch. The general rule now is you have one shot. So when an indie developer goes and puts it in early access, that could actually be a bad thing if you didn't have the right promotion behind it.
For indie developers that have a tighter budget, do you have any tips for them on how to market their game effectively?
Now when you talk about marketing and trying to acquire users, it's not about throwing money at the problem, it's about throwing the right money at the right solution. And now we're in a world where we have all this data on player behavior that we're actually able to segment players into different markets. And what that allows us to do from not only from a customer relationship perspective and a marketing perspective is specifically target users for their needs at the right price.
You're going to leave a lot of money on the table if you do a banner ad with a specific magazine and you're launching on PC only and 90% of their audience is console. Find your niche and understand that if you're on a limited budget, you've got to be so smart in how you spend that money.
It costs money, but going to shows like PAX Prime, PAX East, shows where you're interacting with your customer, where you can see how they're playing with your game, get direct feedback, those are invaluable.
So for indies looking for a publisher, what piece of advice would you give them as to how to approach a publisher?
I find what they don't do, and they should do, is really do an in-depth, as much as they can, comparative of the competition that's out there. Their presentation of their games has to be succinct. Get to the point quickly. Get to the main features that make your game unique. That really helps a publisher hone in on what makes that game good and what makes that game marketable.
One of the mistakes I think a lot of independent developers make is they think about their games all the way up to launch. Well, in a games as a service market, which we're in now, it's more than just about getting to launch. It's about post-launch. I always ask myself, what am I doing in the game at day 30, at day 60? What am I doing in the game a year from now? Is there still content for me to consume?
What do you guys think makes a good fit between a developer and a publisher?
The first thing that pops to my head is a strong relationship of trust.
It's a team effort. It's a 50-50 team effort, a partnership, a real partnership between you and the developer so that you can create the best game possible and the best marketing or PR possible.
We go into so many meetings with developers globally, and one of the things I'll always mention in a meeting with a non-Canadian developer is I mention that we are Canadian, and so that everything we're saying is the truth. And they laugh, but in fact it is the truth.
This episode is sponsored by the Canada Media Fund. Since 2010, they've invested over $50 million in Canadian indie game studios. Indie Games Level Up is produced by Handmade. Handmade creates video game trailers, commercials, and this web series. This episode is sponsored by the Montreal International Game Summit. Get to the next level with MIGS.